He's addressing people who are just starting. That's even worse. There was not a comment about safety. Even his bandsaw cuts were dodgy. Dude, I would give you thumbs up if I wasn't afraid of cutting my thumbs off watching your video. Okay, welcome back. We are going at this today here. We have another acrylic model making demonstration. I've only seen parts of this. I zoomed through it because there were safety elements that catch me. Those of you who watch my videos, you know I'm a freaking safety Karen. It's just what happened to me, but I'm a testament that I can have 30 years of craftsmanship, still have my hands, my fingers, my health, pretty good vision, and things like this. So the things that I'm calling out are really for the younger people just getting into their career, because the days add up to weeks, the weeks to months, the years to decades. So this stuff matters. And I also want this video to be compared to the precision of the Korean acrylic maker. Now he was really well equipped, but this is DIY stuff. So let's see how this guy does.
It's okay to glue your acrylic together with super glue. Do you think it's acceptable to use tape to put acrylic together? Do you think it's okay to glue your acrylic together with hot glue?
Takes a long time just to build this bullshit prop stuff, you know, to throw it in front of.
My name is Eric Strebel. I'm an industrial designer. Welcome to my channel about product design.
Okay, we should be in for something good.
Some good basic tools for working with acrylic are a nice good steel ruler, an acrylic scoring blade, some solvent. Stepper bits work really good for drilling holes, a file, some sandpaper, and then a good way to dispense the solvent. You can use a brush, but I like to use
so this is
needle like this lure lock.
He's taking the time to lay it out.
Here's a sheet of blue extruded acrylic. It has a slightly lower melting temperature than the cast acrylic, but perfectly suitable for any model building project. Cast acrylic usually has a paper backing on it. That's how you can tell the difference. It has a higher melting temperature and is usually a little bit harder than the extruded acrylic. It comes in many colors, including translucent, transparent, like the clear, and of course, many colors, like this sheet of black. It comes in rods and tubes as well.
Okay, we get it.
Different sizes.
You know, I just want to say really quick that there's a lot of acrylic shapes that are out there built already and easy to buy. So if you have a generic shape, like you need a block, a solid acrylic that looks like an ice cube, you can buy these things, acrylic spheres. They're readily available. You don't have to build everything.
Sort of model building project, you need some sort of a plan. So just like in many of my other videos, we're going to draw out a plan. We're going to make a 2-inch cube. This is equal to 50.8 millimeters.
All right, I'm not going to, you know me and math. So he knows what to cut. He's going to cut that stuff.
The first issue you're going to run into is saw marks, and these saw marks come from the bandsaw itself. So I file and sand the edges of all the pieces of acrylic to get them out. Next, let's cut the 4 sides.
I meant to stop it.
I've cut a few extra.
So what I wanted to say is that in acrylic cutting, you have to hook up a vacuum right by your saw, because it's not sawdust that's getting in your lungs, it's plastic that's getting into your lungs. So extra negative pressure.
Pick out the 4 that are the closest in size.
Now,
clamp them together and start filing out those saw marks as well.
He cut on a bandsaw. I have no idea why. You need to cut this stuff on a table saw, because even filing, he's changing the edge. And if you do not have a clean edge for acrylic, it doesn't glue well. It gaps. So I am not happy with this already. You gotta use a table saw and a new blade.
Try to get them all uniform. Now, let's cut the top and the bottom parts.
That's sloppy.
Now that we have the 2 end caps cut, let's drill a hole. I'm going to use a regular drill bit. Notice how I have a piece of wood under.
If you're holding a piece of acrylic on a drill press, it's going to get away from you, and then it just starts spinning and it turns into a plastic blade. My friend had that happen, and it was like thumbnail gone. And it happens so fast. Because what happens is that plastic can kind of grab or melt, and things stick.
Underneath my piece of acrylic.
His clamp is a good idea.
So you don't get chip out the back side. Nice and slow, easy does it. Gets you a really nice.
He's right about that.
Bit. Next, I'll bandsaw off a little piece of acrylic rod, and that's what we will adhere onto the end of the cube. Let's talk about solvents. I'm using Weldon's water clear fast set dichloromethane. I'm taking it out of the main container with a syringe, and I'm...
So when you're gluing acrylic together, you're actually not gluing it, you're melting it together. And so it's called a solvent because when you drop drops of this solvent, it dissolves the plastic, and then the solvent evaporates, and then the plastic is left joining it. It's a weld is what it is. The thing is that solvent, it's not inexpensive, and also if you don't cap it, it evaporates, and so you can think you have enough glue and you don't. So you have to transfer them into these bottles. We use syringes, not bottles. I'll talk about that.
Putting it into this Lure Lock application bottle. This is what I'm going to use to adhere.
Yeah, evaporation, even through the needle.
Another. Let's do a little flood weld. So I'm just flooding the area and placing the other piece of acrylic right on top of it. And that...
So if you're building a model to mold, this is where it ties in. Flood welds and the glue and the solvent, they all inhibit the cure of platinum cured silicones. And so if you glue something, you got to wait a few hours to say the least, or else it will inhibit the cure. I never liked flood welding. It just sort of squished out, and then it leaves a little bit of a micro residue on your piece. And if you have an opaque piece, it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing clear acrylic, you'll get these sort of watermarks. So to me, this is a messy method.
Melts the acrylic. So
don't do it like this. So he should have a piece of acrylic down here, and then he should be dropping his glue right there. You want that gravity to go into that seam line, and the acrylic will kind of, it looks like it kind of absorbs it. The good production people have a big block, a metal block behind you here, and they'll put a magnet right here, and that holds the acrylic in place, and so it stays, everything stays vertical. This is a messy way to glue like this. You never glue vertical. It's always horizontal on the table. Why? Why?
When I'm using this needle here to place little drops of fluid...
His box isn't square. This is sloppy.
And melting...
Acrylic has to be perfect.
Molecular level, and this allows the acrylic to then bond to another piece of acrylic. It makes a very strong bond after about 12 to 24 hours.
It does.
I'm sanding the cube flat so I can put the end caps on.
No. You see... You don't sand in between these things. You cut everything clean to begin with. Now, if you can't cut acrylic clean, you shouldn't be doing acrylic because you're going to have all these extra steps. Acrylic is highly fussy, and so I think the commentary on this should be highly fussy. And he's gluing exactly opposite. You glue on the bottom.
Notice I'm using a 30 gauge needle here in this.
So when I used to glue acrylic, and I used to do a lot of it, I had a glass syringe, and then you would screw in these needles, and I would hold this syringe, and it had a diameter of about 3/4 of an inch, and I would just push it with my hand. That's how I was taught. The bottles squeeze, but I always noticed that from the bottle came too big of drops, but from the syringe, I could handle it and make a nice bead going across. So, but this is more accessible for most people.
Lure Lock bottle applicator. It's very fine because the salt...
So what happens here is when he's gluing, is he glued and then he has to adjust. When you put something down on the table and it's already fixed, your glue goes in and it welds it. You can't adjust it later. He's picking up all sorts of glue on his fingers and solvent. And that solvent is going to melt into the acrylic, which leaves fingerprints on the acrylic. There's a reason he's using a white box. It's hiding all of these errors.
Solvent is very, very thin, and this allows me to place just a little bit of solvent exactly where I need.
I either got a video gluing or find something online to show this.
Two pieces together.
His box is not good.
Let's add a weight on the top just to help. And now let's glue in the 3/8 clear rod into the hole that we've drilled and place just a tiny bit of solvent along the bottom.
Way too much.
And connect those. The solvent will evaporate eventually, and it'll create an excellent bond. We'll peel away the paper, and our cube will be finished. The parts for this cube were cut with a bandsaw, which means
Yeah,
you have
let's see.
saw marks that you have to remove somehow. So
You know, if you're cutting a box, either you cut it on the table saw and cut flat, or you cut mitered edges and they go together really clean. But to me, this is, I wouldn't pay for this acrylic work. If my acrylic shop had done this, it would have been terrible because we were making shapes to be cast in chocolate, and chocolate is very shiny and clean. But now the mold would pick up all of this seam line here, and everything that's being hidden in white would jump out. So craftsmanship or courtesy? I mean, this is the choice I got to make right now, and I choose craftsmanship.
not my first choice for building models with acrylic. Let's take a look at some other options. Let's build the second cube with an acrylic scoring blade. You can buy these at your local big box retailer for less than $10.
These blades are meant for replacing like a big piece for a window, not something that's small that you need tolerances with. Those blades, they work, but I wouldn't do small work with it, small pieces.
This blade has a hook.
The ruler jumps. Oh, he's got it clamped. Good.
V-groove in your plastic, and you can drag that against a ruler to create your break line.
I never could cut really good lines with this.
Several times.
I tried it a couple times.
To create a nice groove in your acrylic. You can then take your acrylic and snap it. You want to grab onto the fatter piece of acrylic so you get better leverage to break it. Let's clamp that piece of acrylic along that
Here's the deal.
on the edge of the table.
Again, for replacing a window pane or some security thing, this is fine. But what he just did is he snapped the acrylic, which means that it has these micro shatter lines. And the way that you glue acrylic requires that there be perfect surface connection. Now he's going to treat that surface. He's got another step to do. He's got to sand it or something, because if you ran your finger across it, it's going to feel like little teeth.
And that's it. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife to cut through the plastic that's on the outside, and you get a pretty clean break. The nice thing about this method,
Either I sucked at it and he's really good at it, or what I described happened.
and you don't have
It could be
acrylic
either.
chips flying all over the place. You'll notice I've cut quite a few strips, and now I'm cutting perpendicular to that strip to make my little side pieces. And of course, I'm going to make extra ones so that I can
Good drama.
four that are the closest in size to make it a little bit easier for me to make my cube. So the snap and score method gives you a pretty
So at our shop, we use lasers, but you know, I mean, that's a big jump. A lot of people don't have a laser.
clean cut, a very clean break, and you don't have to go back and
Doesn't look square to me.
like you do with the bandsaw. You use
Okay, now you can see the shatter edge that I'm talking about. Right here and right here, these are shatter, it's not clean. And so the glue up is gonna be substandard.
solvent as we did to make the first cube.
Oh my God. So that amount of glue is gonna, everywhere that it's spilled right here, is going to evaporate, and it's going to leave this little watermark like a stain in a t-shirt. That is about 10 times as much glue as you need. With the syringe, you just put it just ever so slightly, and actually you can just kind of touch it in one area. Here, I would put my needle, and it can kind of, it feeds itself along there. Those bottles eject too much glue at one time.
This is a 14 gauge needle, much
Oh, good. It's a fail.
dispense the liquid here.
So he saw that. Okay.
Back onto the dispenser and try
That's still, no, one pass.
solvent.
It's not two.
Underneath the piece of acrylic.
It's not a success because he needed to have that framed in the back. If you're making a cube is all about geometry, so you need perpendicularness, and he's just adding a square in the back. It needs to be a big block. Remember, I'm being fussy because acrylic is fussy. If it wasn't, who cares? You can't sell a messy acrylic piece. It looks like shit.
Initial flood of solvent has evaporated. You can come back and
You
add
don't-
a little bit
you don't
more
need to
just
do that,
soften up
typically.
the plastic and create a little bit of a stronger.
I mean, did you see that? Look at this. This is,
I'm going to go ahead and cement the rest of the corners of this clear.
it's not going well.
snap and score
You got fingerprints.
together using the same.
It's not square.
Again, flooding underneath just those overlapping joints.
He's an industrial guy though, right? It's supposed to be better than this.
My cube flat, and a little bit of air to blow off that
No.
dust.
Okay,
I'm applying.
You guys, I'm sorry to say, this is a video on how not to do acrylic work. And I didn't mean to drag you through the trenches here, but if you don't know what it looks like, I mean, I don't know when this was made, maybe he's really good at it now, but this is only for DIY. It lets you understand how acrylic is glued together, meaning how the solvent melts it, but there's nothing precise about this. This is, he could have built a bigger box, I think, and it would have absorbed some of the errors, but you can see all this, it's just not clean. It's how not to do it. I'm sorry.
This is a little bit of an easier cube to build. Accuracy is probably not quite as high as the bandsaw, but an easy, clean way to work and build models with acrylic.
It's not clean at all.
The third way I'm going to build a cube.
Okay, listen closely. If you have not used a table saw, this is exactly how you lose your fingers. There's no pouring, there's no push stick here.
Right. Let's talk about a push stick.
Push stick is when you're cutting a narrow piece of wood and you don't want to go between the rip vents and the blade. This allows you to go through safely.
Got it.
First of all, you can't control it. It will bind up and it will definitely kick back at you, in some cases taking your hand over that blade.
Okay, so off with the rip fence.
All right, now here is a miter gauge. All right, it goes in these slots. This is primarily used for cutting the length of the wood, whether it's a miter or whatever angle you want to choose. And you want to go across the blade like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right? Oh! The blade goes right down instantly.
That is
Shutting the
remarkable.
saw off.
The big piece of acrylic should be on this side, and the little piece should be being ejected on this side. He's cutting backwards. What happens is this small piece is going to bind. My buddy cut his thumb off doing this. This is a don't fuck around with it. This guy's a pro. What the hell?
Is to use a
It kind
table saw.
This kind of pisses me off, actually, because he's taking the time to take pictures of this, and he's just about to be like, oh, it's a table saw. I'm pissed.
This will give us a higher degree of dimensional accuracy than the other two methods we've used so far. I'm using a cross-cut.
I did some stupid shit on the table saw, and my table saw, I was in such a tight space in the basement, I put it under a stairwell and I had one hanging light bulb, so I was far worse. I was cutting small pieces in the dark on a table saw, and I just got to the point where I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And so we bought a laser, because I realized that the cost of a laser was going to be paid for again and again, get cleaner cuts. And I was actually terrified with the cuts that I had to make. They were too small for me to ask any employee to cut. And table saws they're no joke, man. This is absolutely horrendous practice.
60-tooth cutoff blade here. They do make special plastic blades, and mine says for plastic on the side. Basically,
This cut right here,
has
it can twist and bind like this so fast, so fast. Now, he's probably pretty good at it, but why would you show this to anybody to say to do it like this?
to get my fingers.
This is me
to
pissed
hold
off.
The smaller pieces of plastic.
Don't be proud of that.
Wood against the taller fence. You'll see here. These
I'm
pieces
highly
are
disappointed,
all
Kay.
dimensionally identical because they were cut.
Can you imagine someone watches this video, some kid? Like this guy, like, yeah, they're like, oh, this guy's awesome. He does all this stuff. And I saw him use the table saw like that.
On the
I
saw.
don't mess around when you're going to lose fingers.
Square faces are 50.8 millimeters.
I say,
They're perfectly square.
go f yourself.
Use a router with a 45-degree bit to bevel each one of the 4 edges on each of the surfaces. So the router does a really nice job of beveling those edges. There's no tear out.
All right. Look, if people were just going to make something ugly, I wouldn't be so bad about it. And it's not that the people watching don't already see that this is bad. Why I'm having a freaking conniption about this is that if nobody thinks to tell a new person about it, that that's not the way you use a saw, they're screwed just because they're so enthusiastic to go use tools and build something, and they start at 16, 17, 18 like this. I mean, why would anybody put a kid in harm's way like that? I'm bitching with the hope that the bitch goes out there and it lands somewhere to someone else who will also bitch to somebody. And this is a bitch fest that I think is worth having. So really, really watch young people with this equipment. It can be so instantaneously bad, and you just don't get it back. I'll tell you, in fact, my friend who was very skilled, he cut his thumb off here. What happened was, and he was very skilled. He was tired. He was cutting flooring past his bedtime. And I had a rule, no power tools after 9 o'clock, because I knew I wasn't paying attention. And I called him, and when I found out he cut off his thumb, I said, what happened? How's the pain? All this? And he said, yeah, my thumb hurts, but he's like, and he got kind of broken up, and he said, you know what? He said, I have to look at my hand every day and think that I did something that's stupid. I didn't even think of the psychology of a cut, but he knew he was taking a shortcut, literally, when he cut this. And I didn't think about the psychological implication of that. So I personally have a story about it, and I could have cut my thumbs off so many times, thank God.
This gives us a really nice surface to use our solvent on.
I gotta take a drink.
Adhere the parts to each other. And it's just a matter of going through.
I thought this was gonna be a happy place.
The edges together.
People building stuff makes me happy, but people doing dangerous stuff
Same solvent here that
pisses me off.
The other cubes. You could use
kids watch the internet.
Like cement here if you wanted and apply it with.
Like you said, oh, the kid goes into dad's shop.
To use the solvent.
You got to put lockouts on these tools.
To build.
My acrylic guy, who was so skilled, he cut all these 4 fingers, and they reattached them. But all these 4 fingers were shorter. It just went right off in the saw. So I've seen it. I didn't see that happen. I mean, I'd not be normal after seeing that, but he was a pro.
Models with building a cube with a table saw and a router.
Glue on the table. I don't know why this vertical glue is happening. I don't know. I don't understand it.
And then beveling the edges is going to give you the highest degree of accuracy, the cleanest, best looking cube that you can build. Now, not everybody's going to have a table saw to build a cube like this, so you may end up using one of the other methods, but I want to cover all the different options if you're just starting out and building basic models with.
See, he's addressing people who are just starting. That's even worse. There was not a comment about safety. Even his bandsaw cuts were dodgy.
Acrylic. Each of the methods have their own advantages and disadvantages.
You can see the static charge of everything, right? I mean, you can't, it's hard to clean up those surfaces.
We'll cover.
It's like a cat, you know? You're always.
And drape form and flame polish our acrylics. Stay tuned for that. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so.
Dude, I would give you thumbs up if I wasn't afraid of cutting my thumbs off watching your video. So really, I got blinded by anger for all the reasons that I said. I'm gonna watch some more of his videos because I feel like he's gotta have some other skills there. The thing is what happens with people that are working in their basements alone. I was one of those guys for over a decade in a basement by myself. That is that I would take risks because it was just me. I had no one else to pass it off onto. I'm just like, I gotta get this done. And I became comfortable with risks, which is the wrong thing to do. And then I just woke up one day and I was like, I wanna live. Maybe I fell in love or something and had reason to live. But I'm giving this absolutely 2 thumbs down, 2 hands down, 2 feet down, and I've never given a video that bad of a review, and it's only because of safety. Sure, the acrylic was sloppy, but so what, right? We're here to learn how to do that, but I'm not here to learn how to cut my hand off. So it's a mold maker's flip off. Sorry, guys.